Hey guys, it's Miss Smith. Okay, so you should have turned in a completed drawing. Yours might not be as full as mine, but I would love it if it is. If you want to take a pen and outline it, you can. You do not have to. But you can, I think someone even added some color to theirs. I haven't graded them yet, but you can do whatever you want if you've got time at the house, but only the requirements that I asked for have to be in your finished drawing. One of the first assignments that we did was we looked at ways to create the illusion of space. And to be honest, many people were very confused by that and didn't do so great. So we're going to touch on that again before we move on. Okay, so I've created the illusion of space in here. I have things that look like they're further away and things that look like they're closer to us, but they're not. This is one sheet of paper. Ooh, there's my old drawing. This is all one sheet of paper. Everything is just as far. It just created the illusion that it's further away. It's really not. It's just on a flat piece of paper. So how do artists create those illusions of space? Okay, so I'm going to go through each one, and then for tomorrow's assignment, or I should say I'll post this today, I'm a day ahead, but for the assignment that you guys are going to do, I want you to use your drawing and you're going to write out examples, and I'm going to do an example for each one in my drawing. Okay, and we're only going to focus on these 5. In the basic ways to create the illusion of space, you'll also have value and color. But since I can't teach that right now in our format, and I don't usually teach it in the 9-week rotation class at school, we're not going to talk about that. That's more of a full year art assignment type lesson right there. Okay, so linear perspective. And I'm going to write answers on this piece of paper. So how did I use linear perspective to create the illusion of space? That's really how you format the question. I used 1-point perspective to create a city. Okay, so that's what I did. I used 1-point perspective. Because remember, in linear perspective, there's 1 point, there's 2 point, and there's 3 point. I will not teach you these. If you want to look those up, you definitely can. Just look them up on YouTube and you can see lots of different examples. But I used 1-point perspective to draw a city. I could have put it over here, I guess. And that's the answer. Okay. My road is using 1-point perspective. My buildings are using 1-point perspective. My signs, my objects that are going further away from, everything is using 1-point perspective. Okay, that's what I use to draw my entire city. Now, overlapping is next. Overlapping is when you have one object that covers another object. And our brains automatically tell us that the square is in front of the circle, because the square is overlapping the circle. So I just have to point out at least one spot where I have done overlapping, but I've done overlapping a lot. This light pole overlaps the building. The bushes overlap the building. Look, I got 3, the light pole, the bush, and then the building. Okay. This building overlaps that building. It overlaps that fence. I added a little garden right here. I just planted vegetables in my garden at my house today. So I had drawn a garden in there. Anytime there's one object in front of another, that is overlapping. So I'm just going to say one example. So I'm going to say the first light pole, not sure if that's one word or two, overlaps the art shop building. So there's an example of overlapping. The first light pole overlaps the art shop building. And these things seem really simple when you're like, well, yeah, that's how you do it. But when you're having to verbalize it, it tends to get a little tricky. Okay, size. And you guys know this. When you see an airplane up in the sky and it's teeny weeny, we know that that airplane is really larger. If it were to come closer to us, that it would be larger. But how does that happen when we draw? Okay, so I just have to give an example of where something gets smaller because of space. Okay, this light pole is smaller than this one because it's supposed to look like it's farther away. Okay, the sidewalk squares. These sidewalk squares are smaller than these because these are supposed to look like they're further away. Buildings get smaller. Even my cows, they get smaller. Okay, so anytime something gets smaller, this is a trash can by this one, it's smaller than that trash can because it's further away. This part of this sidewalk is smaller than that sidewalk because it's further away. Okay, so you can use any example. I'm going to use my light poles, I think, as my example. Okay. My light poles get smaller as they appear to get further away. And that's how simple that answer is. Okay. All right, so let's go placement. If you'll look, this is your picture plane. Okay, whatever your paper is, that's your picture plane. And you'll notice that at the lower part of the picture plane, everything is close to us. And that's always called your foreground. What's further away from us is at the top, and that's called your background. And then in the middle, you have middle ground. So you've got foreground, middle ground, and background. If you'll notice, it gets higher on my paper. This is the bottom of my paper. This is the top of my paper. So as things get further away, they get higher on my paper. Okay. There is another kind of note to placement. We are going to do inside room interiors next, and I'll show you what that rule is when we get there. But for all of this type of circumstances, as it gets further away, it's going to get higher. Okay, so placement. One thing that I notice students do in the classroom is they'll say something about size when they're talking about placement. The buildings get smaller. If you're using a size word, smaller, larger, if you're using a size word, you should only be answering this question. Okay, do not use these two words with any other answer. Okay, so placement. There's a lot of things that I could do. If you'll notice, light pole number 1, 2, and 3. So as they get further away, they're higher. As the buildings get further away, they get higher. My UFOs are even further away in my clouds, so they're at the top of the paper. I wouldn't have my clouds down here. Okay, so as things appear to get further away, they get higher on the picture plane. So I'm going to say, let me get over here on the camera. I'm going to use my buildings this time, but I could use any of those examples. The buildings that appear closest to us are at the bottom of the work. The buildings get higher on the paper as they appear to get further away. Okay, So you could have even answered that with a little fewer words. I like to talk a lot. If you guys had me in class, you would know that. But like even the light poles. The light pole that is furthest away, that appears to be furthest away, is higher on the picture plane than the one that appears closer. So you can word it a little bit shorter than what I've worded it, but that's basically what it is, okay? And so remember, all of this is in the same place. For it to actually be further away, something would have to be, you know, this is closer, now it's further. But everything is drawn on this one picture plane. So in reality, everything's in the same place. We just created this illusion of space. We just created this illusion of this world. And so that's why we don't want to use words like smaller when we're talking about placement or overlapping or linear perspective or detail. Okay. So as things get further away from us, they lose detail. I'm losing the words. Okay. So they start to lose detail. So that just means there's things that you can't see. So, you know, you're walking down the street and you're going to pass somebody. You're down here and you're back here. Maybe they have something on their shirt. Maybe you can kind of see it, but you can't actually read the words. As you get closer, that detail becomes large enough for you to be able to see it. Okay. So because when things are further away, you can't see it. I actually put like a little light bulb in this light, but you can't see that on this one back here because it's too far away. It wouldn't have one. The edge on the sidewalk, here we can see it, but back here we can't. We can't see that detail. Okay. And so part of your brain will say, well, yeah, we can't see it because it's smaller. But yes, it is smaller, but we're only talking about detail right now. So we don't want to use a side word, okay? A size word. So we want to talk about only the one that we are on. So when I did this one here, this building, I didn't want to, I was thinking this could be like a restaurant, like pasta or something, because I didn't want to do more letters. But I wasn't sure what this was, but I just kind of made some lines in there because I thought, well, this sign would be harder to read because it's further away. Okay. So I could use anything. I could use the light poles. I could use the sidewalk squares. I could use the signs on my buildings. I could use the cows. Okay. So anything that you think that you want to use for it, you can use. Just make sure that it fits the circumstance. So let's see. On the first light pole, comma, you can see the actual light bulb. But on the last light pole, you can not see that detail. Okay, so you just want to reference some type of detail. And one thing that you're going to notice is that all of these work together. As things get further away, they lose detail. As things further away, they get smaller. As they get further away, they move up on the picture plane. As things get further away, they get overlapped by things that are not as far away. And all of those things use linear perspective to help create the illusion.